Welcome to the Practice Podcast, a show created by lawyers to help lawyers in life and business without all the complicated lawyer language. Let's welcome Bast Amron founders and your hosts, Jeff Bast and Brett Amron.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Brett. How are you?
I'm well. And you?
I'm great. We're recording this a couple of days before Thanksgiving, and I'm looking forward to some family time. And
I can already smell the food cooking.
The vegan Thanksgiving.
Feast. That's right. And everyone gets to ask me and you questions about what you eat and what you don't eat. And
with a bunch of vegans. So
are you? Yeah, I'm not.
That issue
I'm the only one. So they all stare at me and say, "What are you going to eat?" Yeah, it's fantastic. Yep. I think our guest is ready to be introduced and have a conversation.
Oh, should we? Oh, hi, Olga.
Hi, Olga.
Our guest today is Olga Vodolazschi. Did I pronounce that right?
No way. Not even. Wait.
No,
Vodolazschi. So many letters
Let's
there.
rewind.
Vodolazschi. I introduced you at an event recently.
Let's give it a few more tries, Jeff. Let's give it a few more tries.
Olga Vodolazschi.
Let's see if in 30 minutes he can get it right.
Right.
I'm not even going to try.
Vodolazschi.
Vodolazschi.
I know there are too many letters there.
No,
initially there was an
Vodolazschi.
SKI. And that would sort of give it away. But with the SCHI, it's just...
It's
they want to make it more
anytime
difficult.
I see four consonants in a row, my brain turns off. So
yeah.
Olga Vodolazschi.
Not even. Is that right?
Is the founder of OV Law Group, focused on corporate and real estate tax structuring and planning, cross-border tax structuring, pre-immigration planning, estate planning, accounting, tax compliance, all kinds of compliance. Olga has spent her professional formative years at one of the big four accounting firms in the mergers and acquisitions department. After that, she moved into a mid-size advisory and accounting firm to focus on the private client side, where she guided high net worth individuals and corporations, family offices, and trust companies from all over the world. She holds a JD and an LLM in tax, and she's licensed to practice in Florida and New York. And her services are offered in 5 languages.
Right. Full stop and pause there for a minute.
5 languages.
That is, everything else is impressive. That is off the charts.
Welcome, Olga.
Well, thank you guys for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you. And
Thank you
I
so much.
apologize for butchering your name.
I now understand why it's OV Law Group.
Right. Without the last name, right?
Without
Imagine that. Imagine that.
But it's not that hard. I mean,
No, go ahead, please.
Vodolazschi. Did I do it right?
Should have had imagery.
You see that?
Why was I doing that?
I love that.
Is that Russian? Is that a Russian name or what's the?
It is such a mix of things. It's Russian, Polish, Ukrainian, Moldovan, a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything kind of mixed in there. Is that why it's so long?
It's so long,
right?
I know. A few letters from every culture, right? I know.
Right. Well, welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
It's nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.
So you started on the did you start on the financial side of things and then move over to the practice of law at one of the big four accounting firms? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I think even before law school, sort of before understanding what I'm getting into, I decided to be a paralegal. So I was a paralegal in a big law firm in New York. I was working in the litigation department, so I definitely worked long hours to get a feel of what it is to be on the legal side. And somehow they didn't scare me, as at the end of the 2 years that I've done, they actually said, "Oh, you still want to go to law school?" So
now you did that thinking that you wanted to go to law school?
Exactly, yes. I wanted to give it a try.
And did somebody give you that suggestion, or how'd you know to go work as a paralegal before law school?
I guess I was speaking to other people, but I just thought, law school is 3 years, and I heard that it's more theoretical than practical. So I wanted to see first the practical side. I guess I'm generally a very practical person.
Right.
So, and looking back, it was definitely an excellent experience because first year of law school made so much more sense.
Right. I love that idea, by the way. Working as a paralegal before going to law school as a way to sort of dip your toe in the water.
Yes.
I just don't know, was it that easy to go get a job as a paralegal? And do law firms want to hire someone who they know is going to go to law school? I guess so. I would. Would you?
Well, he's answering his own questions
There you
now.
go.
That's great. We've moved
No, it
on.
was great. Yeah, it was great. Like, for example, civil procedure first year, made sense because I've seen all those papers in litigation case. It was a copyright infringement case. So I've seen all those motions. So I understood the purpose of all of them. So law school definitely made much more sense. And then, during those 3 years, I took a bunch of classes and somehow I decided tax is for me because, again, I like the analytical side. I like to look at the code. I like to figure out why and how to get to the end goal. So tax it is. And here we are.
So your undergraduate work before law school and your LLM, did you do that here in the United States or
yes.
did you? Okay. So when did you move here?
Can we back up? Yeah. So let's start from all the way in the beginning. Where were you actually born?
So I was born in Eastern Europe. I was born in Moldova, small country between Romania and Ukraine. It's in the news lately also as neighboring to all the things that are happening currently in that part of the world. And I moved here when I was 16. I moved for college. So I went to college. I went to Skidmore College, upstate New York.
16?
Yes, when I was 16.
You went to college when you were 16?
When I was 16, I started 17. So it was sort of right before. And I went to Skidmore, lovely Saratoga Springs, upstate New York. I did my undergrad in economics and political science. Then I moved to New York and I did the paralegal job. And then I decided to go to law school. I went to Seton Hall in New Jersey. And then I figured that I would like to focus on Latin American market because of my foreign languages, and Miami is the gateway to Latin America, and it was different, definitely different scene than it is today.
For sure.
But again, looking back, I think it was a great decision, and I moved to Miami to do my LLM in tax because I figured to actually practice tax, you do need some extra in-depth understanding. And the UM has one of the best programs in international tax. There are only a handful of law schools around the country that do the LLM in international tax. And it was great. It was 1 year. So I got much more understanding of the tax code, living and breathing it in the wall between, in the walls of the library. And that's how I started and then I joined one of the big 4 accounting firms and I started in M&A. So I saw again sort of the accounting mixed with the legal side.
Did you come over to the US by yourself or with family?
My older sister lives in New York. So at the end of the day, I was on my own in school. But so my parents were back home and I have 12 years difference with my older sister. She was always supporting me. And it was a 4-hour train ride from Saratoga Springs to New York. So I would come once in a while, but definitely in the beginning, it was an adjustment. Culturally, it's your typical liberal arts college, but it was small. I always wanted to go to a liberal arts college because you have that sort of family feel. The whole school, if I remember, was 1,200 students.
That's small.
1,200, 1,400, something along those numbers. And so it was cold. Maybe that's one of the reasons I ended up in Miami. It was really, really cold. It's about an hour away from Toronto. So,
but not dissimilar to Moldova, I would imagine, right? About
correct.
The same.
Yes, but I am not a fan of the cold.
The cold,
Let's just put it out there. I am not
enough.
a fan of the cold.
Fair enough.
But it was a lateral move, and then
came south.
Yes.
Do you have family that still lives in Moldova?
My parents actually moved to the U.S. not long ago, and they are on the West Coast. They're in California.
Oh, okay.
So we are spread all over the country. They're in California. I'm in Florida. My sister's in New York.
Nice.
And we're actually meeting for Thanksgiving.
Oh, nice. There you go.
Today.
In California?
Oh, that's super nice.
Here.
Oh, that's so nice. I'm heading to California for.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
To see my
Yes, I remember.
That'll be our next podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I want to know about those vegan recipes.
Yeah, let's go.
A lot of them.
That's that's another podcast episode.
Oh, yeah, we
there.
should do that. All right, idea.
For that.
Nelson, mark that down. We'll get like one listen.
Furiously right.
Me.
It'll be Olga, right?
Yeah.
So, when did you pick up the language? And pick up, I know, is the wrong term, but did you already speak 5 languages when you came to the U.S.?
So in Europe, generally, I think there's that mentality that you need to speak a few more languages than your native one. So again, by virtue of location and in Eastern Europe, my parents are Russian, so I spoke Russian at home. But in Moldova, the official language is Moldovan Romanian, which is basically the difference between what we speak here in the US and in England.
Like a dialect.
Right. So my native languages, I always consider both Russian and Romanian because I went to a Romanian school, but I spoke Russian at home. And then throughout school, I always learned French and Spanish. And English was also one of the I attended a language school as well. But they're all from the Latin family of languages. So once you pick up one, you figure out the grammar and sort of the root of the words. For example, Romanian and Spanish are very similar. And then French comes along. So basically I picked it up while I was still growing up in Moldova. And then when I started college, I did a study abroad program, and then I stayed a little bit longer in Spain. I actually did an internship in an NGO, which was a great experience as well. I was writing speeches in English and translating them into Spanish. It was great.
Oh, wow.
And then obviously moving to Miami, this is the place to use the Spanish. I would say in my practice, I use it more than I use English on a daily basis for my clients.
Wow. I wish there were more of an emphasis on that in the United States, but we're so insulated here. In Europe, it's if you take a train, you can go into 3 different countries.
Yes.
Here, we're so insulated that everyone's like, you're going to learn English. And so we use it as a crutch.
Yeah.
Right.
I think people assume, that everybody speaks English.
Right.
So,
and I feel like the kids, they do mandate it in the schools, but you don't want to learn it. And then later in life is when you really want it. Yeah. You're like, wow, I really should have paid attention in high school Spanish.
Yeah. And I think they're using it more. I think they're, they see it, they need it more now, but it's really Spanish, at least down here, right? Is the primary focus. And I think there's some that learn French and Mandarin to some extent as well. But I think that Spanish is the primary second language, I think, that is taught in the schools here.
For sure.
But man, I would love to see more of an emphasis. I wish it was that way when we were younger,
Yeah. Miami is a separate, is a little separate world, right? From the rest of the state and of the country, I would say. So definitely such a melting pot, and Spanish is important here.
So let's get into the tax. Why tax? Why do you like it? Why do you focus on it? And then let's get into your practice and what's your focus.
Sure. So I guess going back to law school, right? I tried different classes and tried to see what are those different areas. And I really stuck with tax. Again, I mentioned I like the analytical side and sort of the analysis. And it has the practical aspects also. And I do like to help people at the end of the day, right? I mean, we are in this to help our clients, no matter what practice you're in. And I ended up focusing on the international side by virtue of our location, right? Miami. Majority of my clients are Latin Americans. I would say my connections are mostly in Latin America. I work with law firms, family offices, trust companies, such jurisdictions as Peru, Mexico, Colombia. I would say those are the biggest hubs of clients for me. And the typical client, right? The typical high net worth individual that moves to Miami, either to start a business or to buy some real estate, or the kids are already going to school, or they're starting to attend school. So there are always all those questions, right? How will tax affect me? How do I structure my assets in a more efficient way? How do I deal with IRS, right? So I'm basically on the side before the controversy happens, right?
Right.
Trying to help them avoid.
Exactly. I'm trying to plan it all accordingly, so there are no issues in the future.
So if I'm a business owner or an individual, whether I'm in a business or not, and I think that I want to move to Miami, is that the time that I reach out to you for advice?
Yes, I usually work very closely with immigration attorneys because as the client is deciding what is the route from immigration point of view, is it a business visa, is it an immigrant visa, non-immigrant, that affects the tax side, right? To understand what would be the tax consequences for the individual and for the businesses, right? Depending what they have. Yeah, so it's always in the beginning before he or she or they or the business starting in the US, in Florida, or whichever other state. I'm not limiting my practice to Florida. I mean, I have clients who are in California as well, in Texas. Depends on the type, on the nature of the business and where they want to settle down.
And now you said your clients are largely based in Latin America. Is that a product of your practice in the big four accounting firms? Was that your client base there, or how did you develop that?
I guess when I moved to the smaller size, mid-size, smaller size accounting firms, I was handling a lot business development side of the business. So I was traveling a lot to Latin America. I would give speeches, presentations. I would go to Chamber of Commerce, attend different tax conferences. And that way you make connections and you meet people. And usually the clients that I target and the type of clients that I have, once they decide to make the move, they always reach out to their local counsel. And then the local counsel reaches out to me, right? So that's basically sort of organically, I get involved in the process once the US comes up, right, in the conversation.
Right.
What are you seeing in terms of your clientele? Is it either in numbers, right, in today's market? Are you seeing more people coming, less people coming, or interested in coming? And what's the nature of either the reasons for them coming, or, has it changed? Has it evolved over time?
Sure. So I guess it depends on the jurisdiction, but, Latin America, it's always the very often turbulent times from a political point of view, security point of view. Recently, there were the elections in Colombia, for example. So I definitely see a wave of people trying to move to Miami. A few years ago, there were elections in Peru. Same thing.
We just had the one in Brazil, right? Right.
For example. So it always depends on the local situation and the local climate. Yeah. Exactly. But yes, Miami will always be an attractive place to come, whether it's for business, for security, for financial purposes. A lot of Latin Americans prefer to start business here just because they feel more secure with the financial system here, even though they can continue doing business abroad, but they just have sort of a station here. But still, all the transactions and everything happens
it's not
outside.
And it's not just financial security, it's also personal safety security.
For sure. Personal safety, yes, exactly. Yeah. So Mexico, for same reasons, personal security. Sure. So yes, it's sort of, it comes and goes in waves, but there are always changes in each country. Either they have a tax reform, they have wealth tax in Colombia, for example, which is a new big topic. So it changes. I would say there's sort of a new country that is more in the becoming hotter from, every 2-3 years.
And is most of your practice, is it inbound work? Most of it's foreigners coming to the US, or do you work the other way as well?
Sure. Mostly it's inbound, but I do have cases when people are considering, for example, leaving the US, so they need to renounce the green card or their citizenship. So there's a lot of tax consequences that come with that, right? There's the exit tax that they have to consider. Planning, again, if they have some estate planning and they already have US trusts and they have US beneficiaries, foreign beneficiaries. So it sort of depends. If they are not US tax residents anymore, then some measures have to be taken.
Why would someone have to renounce their green card? What's an example of why that would come up?
I recently had a client, he was a Peruvian, and he just considered that he's paying much more taxes here than in Peru. Not all counsel would agree with that. Not all counsel would agree with that, but neither from U.S. point of view nor Peruvian. Right. But, at the end of the day, we're advocating for clients, for clients' wishes. But
they renounce.
So they renounce the green card and they move back to their country. Or in some other cases, this is also a typical answer from a lot of clients that I wanted to receive my green card so my kids can receive the green card, so they can have better opportunities and set their life here in the U.S. So once that goes through the immigration process, they say, I'm going back. I'm done with the U.S. So
interesting.
But everybody has their own personal situation.
And I know your primary focus is Latin America, but if there's clients that are coming from other parts of the world, are you able to help them as well?
Sure. For example, in Miami, there's a big Russian-speaking community. And of course, since I have my Russian background, I have a few Russian clients as well. I have some Spaniard clients. My focus is Latin America, but always happy to help other jurisdictions and other foreigners.
Olga, I wanted to shift gears if I may. May I? Are you Are you done with your line of questioning?
I mean, I feel like you already have shifted gears. You can't jump in and say, I want to shift gears. Oh, is that okay? I mean, you should really do that before.
I should have. All right.
Let's go.
I've learned a lesson for next time.
Let's make the left turn.
So now I don't even remember where we're going.
See, there you go.
I wanted to talk about the practice at a Big Four accounting firm, because I think that's foreign to a lot of lawyers. I think the traditional path is lawyers go to work at law firms, but you went to work at, I guess, 2 different accounting firms. And so did you ever practice at a law firm besides starting your own?
I haven't actually.
Okay. I guess you worked as a paralegal, so you have a little bit of a perspective.
Yes.
And I'm curious how it's different, or is it the same? Is it just like being a lawyer and you're working with accountants? Or
Yes. So I think the difference is that you see more of the practical side from accounting point of view, because what I've seen a lot, that there's a discrepancy between, since I'm a lot on the compliance side, right? I've seen a lot of discrepancy often between lawyers who give advice on structuring, on corporate advice, the real estate, the sort of the tax setup of a structure for a client who moves to the US. And then the accountant who he or she needs to figure out how to report all of this. So the attorneys often don't know what compliance has to be done, what are the forms that have to be reported. So they're more of a theoretical thinkers, and the accountants are more practical thinkers. So I think since I've been on the accounting side so many times, and again, I'm not a CPA myself, but I know enough to understand what has to be reported, what type of forms have to be reported, because IRS is a whole different world, especially when it comes to international side. There are hundreds of forms that have to be filed just for informational purposes.
Right.
So I definitely like that experience because I went for the accounting side. But yes, as an attorney in an accounting firm, you don't technically practice law, but you do write memos, you give advice, you look at the structures. So there is that legal component. But I think it's different from a law firm, because in a law firm, it's sort of pure, more of the legal side. And
was there a group? I mean, forgive my ignorance on this, but was there a group of attorneys, or were you just part of a group and you happened to be an attorney?
It's actually in M&A. In that time when I joined, there was actually a trend of Big Four hiring attorneys. Because especially in M&A, it's more of a legal side. It's not just the federal side, the partnership department or the corporate department where you do more just the compliance, the partnership returns, the corporate returns, the state returns, because there are all of those groups as well. But the M&A, they had a trend of hiring lawyers to have that more analytical side and the legal background, because you had to deal a lot with the tax code.
Right. But was it specifically tax M&A, or was this were you part of an M&A team, due diligence that does
tax
M&A? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So it's the tax consequences of a merger or an acquisition.
Correct.
Very interesting.
Yes.
And when did you start your own firm?
I started it 5 years ago, and sort of going back to the accounting, that's why I thought, which again is not very typical for an attorney to provide compliance services, but I thought I'll merge those two together. Becomes a one-stop shop for client who doesn't need to have an attorney and an accountant, and then they need to talk to each other and figure out how to report all of that. So once I do the structure, then I maintain it, meaning I report all the entities, the individual level, state level, depending what they have.
You do the returns with them?
So I have accountants on staff who do that.
Nice. Okay. At your firm?
Yes. So we all work together. But yes, so once we do the structure, we look what has to be reported. I make sure that we know all the steps, and then the accountants implement it.
And do you also help out with the controversy if there's an issue that arises with the IRS?
I mean, we do answer notices. Of course, we do get notices here and there for the clients. But if it's something more substantial, I would definitely refer to a colleague who is actually versed in controversy and does that on a daily basis. But the typical notices for not filing a foreign company or simple things like that, we handle that in-house.
Yeah, I know that may be labeled under controversy. To me, that's more like inquiry, right? Controversy, if it gets a little more in depth. So what are you seeing? I know we actually did a podcast recently with somebody who doesn't do international tax and talking about, the budget the new budget for the IRS and the focus on compliance and chasing down tax dodgers, Yeah. What do you see coming down the pike? I mean, how would that or how may that impact your practice in international tax?
I guess that's a good point to always bring up to clients who are a little bit hesitant maybe to report certain things. The mentality of clients in Latin America is a bit different from the mentality of our clients in the US. When everybody hears the word IRS here, you want to over report and sort of to be as transparent as possible. But as what we were talking before in Latin America, due to political reasons, personal safety, reporting is not always at the top of the list. So the fact that there's IRS is mentioning that there are more agents, more budgets. So I definitely like to mention that to clients and say that we have to be as transparent as possible. But I think it will take some time for actually, for the agents to be active and for the process to actually start of hunting down. Right.
Yeah. It's not like they flip a switch and all of a sudden.
Yes. No. I mean, we're dealing with the government at the end of the day.
It'll take time.
So it will take time.
But it's good for your business. I mean, it is. Reality.
Definitely.
The more ominous the IRS is, the more tax planning clients need to do, right?
Ominous.
Sure.
Ominous. Or threatening or more, the stronger it is, the more, thorough they are. The more thorough they are.
Yes. It just depends what they will be focused on and what actual areas, right?
But at a minimum, it requires you to advise your clients that, listen, there is going to be some increased scrutiny potentially in these areas. And so you may want to think about that in terms of disclosure and structure and things, right?
Right.
Interesting. Well, we are in interesting times. Fascinating. Have you been back to Moldova recently? I love world travel, so I know, Jeff.
Have you been to Moldova?
I've never been to Moldova, actually.
No, actually, I haven't been there in about 12 years.
Wow.
Since my family's here.
Right.
No.
I don't know if now is necessarily the right time to go either.
Yes,
I don't know.
I was just about to mention that. So.
Yeah.
Probably this is not the best time now to go, taking into account what's happening in the neighboring country.
Yeah.
But yes, unfortunate events.
Yeah.
So, Olga, I would imagine there's a lot of international business people or people who have immigrated here who are listening to this podcast and wondering, do they call Olga or do they call a CPA when they have a tax question? So, what's the answer?
They should definitely call Olga.
There you go.
I think they should definitely call Olga.
That was a softball. I mean, I think, I knew the answer.
Well, she knocked it out of the park.
Yeah,
you threw it right down the middle.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, it was impressive. Because even if you need a CPA, you need Olga anyway.
She has that service.
And she has the services. She can provide that to you.
All under a single roof.
You just sit there, Olga. We'll take it.
I love this.
We are your marketing.
Yes, I'm just sitting here.
We'll just talk about how amazing. And what we discovered before we started was that Olga is in the process of learning or trying to learn a 6th language.
Hebrew.
There is no stopping, Olga. How many languages do you want to learn?
That will take a while till I add that to my actual list. But
yeah, well, right. You have to be right. I mean, before that raises a very good point, which is you can't really just be sort of minimally conversational in language.
Yes.
You've got to really understand the legal side,
of
right?
Course.
Before you can put on your website and be conversant with clients in what we do, right?
Of course. I mean these are subjects you have to be more than just conversation.
Yeah. Right. No, she doesn't just speak 5 languages. She offers legal services
in 5 languages. Which is incredible.
Yeah.
So we'll hold off on the Hebrew for a while.
Yeah, no, we're not going to publicize that, but still, that's amazing. Kudos to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. This has been fun.
Well, thank you so much, guys. This was a pleasure.
I mean, for us, it's been fun.
It was fun for us. It might have been painful for her, but thank you,
Brett.
It was
great. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
And if you like this episode, please give us a 5-star review, follow the show, share it with your friends and family. If you have any questions or topics you want to hear from us, please let us know, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, Olga, and thank you, Nelson. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. Shalom. I love you.
For more information on this show and other resources, visit fastamron.com and connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at Bast Amron.